5:59. It looks like we have Stephanie in attendance, which is great. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi.
So we're going to call that meeting to order, and the first item on our agenda is our check-in about the community nurse program and the research that Stephanie has been doing in partnership with our town health officer, and we've got a long, well, not that long, but a fairly comprehensive overview of potential programs. And it looks like we also have Kristen Barnum in attendance to kind of help provide some context about these programs in other communities. How would we like to kind of roll through kind of an overview or update on the information that you guys have been able to pull together?
Did they get the letter I had sent? Yeah, that's pretty much what I discovered, and of course I had lots of questions on the end. Kristen is a mountain of information and guidance in this. So I would like to just turf it off to her, because I know she has a presentation too, and that may answer some of our questions. Or
sure, that sounds great. Kristen, thanks, Catherine. Would you like to provide a little context, I guess, on the programs?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Do I have the opportunity to share my screen?
Oh, yeah, sure. I can make you a co-presenter. Hold on.
Thank you. And I'm happy to make these slides available too for follow-up. Okay. Doesn't look like that's what I wanted to share. Let's begin. It doesn't see. Here we go. Okay. I think that's what I want to share. Great. Yeah, again, thank you for having me. My name is Kristen Barnum. I'm the Executive Director for Community Nurse Connection, which is an organization that helps lift up community nursing projects. Let's see. I am a nurse, so I'm a little partial to nursing. I should say that. But we're, as I said, we're a convening organization. So we bring together people, ideas, and resources really to improve the quality of life for older adults. And how we do this, we partner with communities to create a roadmap for the development of projects. We provide access. Actually, that was the screen I shared by accident. We provide access to a confidential documentation system or data collection system so that it's at no cost to the towns or the communities. We provide outcome data to the communities. We host virtual monthly nursing peer support meetings because we realize most of these small rural towns in New England, they don't have the nursing support. So we provide that for the nurses. And we often provide some startup grants and sustainability funding. Again, it depends on what we have, what grants we have to know how much we can provide to communities. A little bit about how it works. So the nurses are employed by the town, the city, the community, maybe a faith-based organization or another nonprofit that's already existing. So the nurses do not they're not employees of our organization. The programs are independent of the mainstream healthcare and reimbursement system, which really allows the flexibility for the nurses to see these clients as often as they need to be seen. Referrals go directly to the communities from the primary care providers, hospitals, neighbors, friends. Actually, about 52% of the referrals last year came from the clients themselves, neighbor, friends, or community members. So they don't go through our organization. And there's no charge to the clients for the services. So what do the community nurses do? A lot of what they do is case management and coordination of care with other organizations. They provide a lot of healthcare education based, usually it's chronic, multiple chronic conditions. So they provide that education in the home where clients are able to learn better than in the clinics or in the hospital discharge. They do fall risk assessment and interventions, a lot of medication reconciliation and medication education. They help talk about advanced directives and advanced care planning, symptom management support, and family support as well. So that's what they do for the individual. And what do they do for the community? There's a lot of community education. We have many communities where the nurse is at the library once a month for an Ask the Nurse. We also have the nurses often bring in outside resources since, for example, the Dartmouth cardiac mobile unit to do enhanced screenings. And we can help in emergency response planning for the community. With the snow, coming, it's nice for the nurse to get in touch with the community in the town to say, like, is there somebody that we need to worry about? Or the nurse can tell the town, are there issues or there's something that we should all be thinking about? So this table here is pulled from the 2022 census. And if you'll notice, I mean, I get it's a little old, but it's still good information. So we've got Calais here, we've got Washington County, and we've got Vermont. And I'm really kind of paying attention to these older adults. And if you really look at it, you're 70 to 79, which is about the median age of folks the nurse is caring for, is higher in Calais than it is in Washington County and Vermont, which just speaks to a need that this is something Calais really needs to take care of the older adults that live in the community. I'm just going to pause a moment for people to look at that for a second. Sometimes I talk too fast, so I like to pause. This is sample data from a similar community to Calais that it shows what you will get on a quarterly and monthly basis. So we collect information on how many clients were served, the median age, new clients, the total number of encounters. We break it down into, are they home visits? Are they phone calls? Are they emails? So you really will get a picture of what that nurse is doing. And then we also track outcomes. And I can say this is data similar to Calais, but this is pretty much what our data shows is the top 3 things are reducing anxiety, reducing isolation, and helping clients remain safely at home. And we know this is what we all want, is to stay home. So a little bit about the cost. We recommend new communities start at about 10 hours per week. This is not urgent care. This isn't, the fast squad responding. It's really preventative care. So about 10 hours per week. We encourage communities to pay fair market wage for the nurse, because if you underpay for the nurse, you're not going to get the high quality skilled nurse that you really want to care for your community. So $45 to $60 an hour. We encourage you to budget for mileage and supplies. And really the total cost for 1 year is about $30,000. Again, depending on what you cover and the skills of the nurse. It's also important to know that every time a community nurse prevents an unnecessary call to 911, the municipality saves about $1,500. Again, unnecessary calls. And more importantly, every time they prevent an unnecessary ambulance ride to the hospital, the client saves about $500. So it's good for the residents that live in your community. So again, different models, there's a lot of different ways to make this happen, but I thought I would put up here that if the nurse is employed by the town of Calais, what we provide at no charge to the town is we provide an iPad and a secure documentation system. It's a double sign-in. It's to make sure that everybody who lives in town, their data is very, very safe. The only folks that can see that information is the nurse and my IT consultant, just in case the nurse needs a little help. We don't share information with other folks in town. We assist with creating job descriptions. We can assist with interviews, orientation, and again, we provide the town with the reports, monthly, quarterly, and annual. So I will stop share and give Stephanie and Catherine a chance to add anything, or I can answer questions.
Good night.
Do you have any questions on what was just presented?
No, thank you, Chris. That's a really helpful perspective. I think most of my questions are relatively, kind of scope and what that looks like for Alice and.
I'm curious how many towns in Vermont have a community nurse program?
Yeah,
ahead.
right now we're at about 19 towns. Some of the towns actually share a nurse, so it's not individual communities, but about 19 in Vermont. And a list of them is on our website.
It's interesting that towns share.
So we actually talked to Woodbury, because there's somebody in Woodbury who is interested, and I actually thought of, discussing with Worcester. But Woodbury's not ready yet to establish one. They want to establish it, or they're thinking of establishing it through their fire department. And the fire department said, no, not this year, just can't do it. So, we're putting that on the back burner, and personally, I think that it would be nice to establish it within our own town of what we need and know what we need, so that then if we want to expand with another town, we at least know what our needs are.
Yeah, one thing I've learned about Vermont is towns are very unique. And although sharing seems to make sense, the towns seem to want their own, their residents to be cared for the way they want. So sometimes sharing doesn't always work out well.
So I was hearing one model being an employee or part-time employee or contract employee of the town. What would be other models if that's not the approach that's employed? How does that relationship get established?
Yeah, sometimes towns, if they have an existing nonprofit that they're very connected with, the nonprofit may employ the nurse, and the town provides some funding for the nurse. Sometimes their employees are contracted by the church or the parish in town. Chelsea, Vermont, a very unique new model. The nurse is actually an employee of First Branch Ambulance. So the nonprofit ambulance service employs the nurse, and the town is contracting with that. So the models are varied, and we're learning new models every day. Sometimes they're employees of the senior center. Again, where the town contracts for the services. So there's a lot of different options that we can explore. There's also there's a town in New Hampshire that the town itself wasn't really ready to go forward, so they built a trust fund, so a community nurse trust, and they're going to pilot the program for 2 years before they embed it in the budget.
How do these programs regulate the like the resource usage? I mean, the budgeting for 5 to 10 hours a week, may seem conservative, but I can see there being swings in the need depending on the year and the population's requirements, et cetera. And so how, it seems like it would be hard to kind of govern the budget. Like once you've stood up the program, how do folks kind of
think-
regulate the engagement?
I think you look at the population, and that gives you an idea of where people are in your town.
Yeah.
Who's coming up. Kristen, you mentioned something about that someone knows within our town officers about the age brackets, or, maybe I misunderstood, but I thought that's what you had said in a certain town.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I had a hard time hearing.
I'm sorry, maybe I didn't speak up loud enough. Is there someone within the town that actually knows and has access to the ages of the population within the town?
Well, I brought up that slide from the census.
Right.
You know, it's a little outdated, and you know, one of the things that's really important, and what we do to help support the nurses is to make sure that they're using the resources that already exist and they're not taking on kind of everything. So, you know, making sure they're making referrals to the Central Vermont Council on Aging, you know, to the home health and hospice agencies. So we that's what we talk about a lot in our virtual meetings is don't take on more than you're able. And usually, you know, if you really kind of budget 40 hours per month, so some weeks may be heavier and other weeks may be lighter. But it honestly, 10 hours a week for most towns is plenty if the nurse is really following the outline of a community nurse.
I was thinking about first of all, thank you, it's really interesting and, great work, and, but I was thinking about the complexity of some of the situations, right, that folks might, the nurse might arrive into, and sort of how they're, dealing with, you know, caregivers that might not be present at the time, but, you know, you're hearing one thing from the person in the home and maybe the caregivers have different information, or, you know, how does that work in terms of just the complexity of some folks' situations and how much or little the community nurse might have information about?
Yeah, it's a great question, and you know, I think one of the real benefits of the community nurse is getting into the home and being able to get information with the client's permission back to the primary care provider, so that you know he or she is really able to do a full assessment of the home environment. You know, I always use my mom as an example, right? She does not live anywhere near me, but she recently was discharged from the hospital, and she's like, "Oh yeah, my neighbors help me all the time." And you know, no, they don't, Mom. So, you know, I think there's the nurse going into the home and really understanding the full environment of what food is in the fridge, you know, based on their chronic conditions. You know, are they eating the right food? You know, do they have access to good nutrition? Do they have access to rides to get the good food? So it's a big picture environment that they're able to share with primary care providers, council on aging, and other resources in the community.
And so, and you're saying that the community nurses provide an assessment to the person's primary care? Is that what I'm hearing you say? Or that you're just, or that they're just referring people to see their primary care?
No, they, with the clients, with the residents' permission, they will give an update to the primary care provider. Again, it's really built on trust, and
Right.
the resident, they will not talk to anybody without their permission. But yes, they often help. And even, if an older adult has been hospitalized for something and comes home, the discharge instructions are very confusing. So the community nurse can go and help them with discharge instructions and reconcile medications and help advocate for the client to talk to their primary care physician. Sometimes they're even at home for a telehealth, at the client's or resident's home for telehealth visits or phone calls. So just helping them, be more independent with healthcare decisions.
Yeah, the home visit is really the crucial part of it. And when you go into someone's home, you are enlightened by a lot. I've done that. I did that as a midwife and, it just explains so much.
Right.
So we have a little more time to kind of keep the conversation going here. I just want to kind of be mindful of that and keeping to agenda. The letter that was provided has some kind of key follow-up questions about where kind of we go from here and looking over those, I think that from my perspective, at least, it seems like it's obvious that the demographics of the community warrant consideration of a program like this. And I think it's interesting to pose the question of, do we want to make it a program or a resource that's available outside of just the context of the elder portion of the population. To your point, you're checking in, you're building trust within the community with the medical system and just a consultative resource that's locally accessible and low cost from the user point perspective. But I think one of the main questions is, how do we afford it, and what is the interest, and how do we go about soliciting that initial interest, and where do we go from there? Because the environment of increased costs and expenses to the town, and I just think that we need to be really careful about how we're making commitments to programs like this. But I don't want to diminish the fact that there could be and likely is a fairly acute need within the community.
Appointed as the town health officer, I mentioned that gentleman who was living in William, Stevens home, and didn't have any heat and didn't have any water and didn't have any electricity. And when I saw his post on Front Porch Forum, I thought, you gotta be kidding me. And it's right there in front of us. And someone just a couple weekends ago told me how they didn't have any food, or for the past 10 years, they've been working 2 jobs and they're so cold in their house. And I thought, holy cow.
Tegan.
There was news about a big federal grant for rural medicine coming to Vermont. Do we know if any of that money could go toward this? Kristen, I'm looking at you.
Yeah, there's a lot of question about the rural health transformation money. On last Friday, I met with the executive director for Blueprint for Health in Vermont. And they are getting a lot of money, but nobody really knows how that money will be spent. And especially the first year, they have to spend it fast. So not really sure. I think kind of going back to the question about community interest, there's a couple of things to think about. There's a thought of, starting a trust, community nurse trust, and seeing if folks would donate, so seeing if there is interest by folks making a donation to support a 2-year pilot. And you could write into that trust that if it doesn't move forward, you could donate it to another organization, but that's a nice way to show if there's really interest in the community to start something like this, is would they fund it? I also can help with some identify some grants that could help support that trust to again, to see if there's community buy-in. I wouldn't probably count on the rural health transformation money this year. And it's a lot of money for 5 years, but you have to think about a plan of sustainability. So I am a nurse. I also have a master's in business. So I think a lot about, sustainability of and business plans. So you'd really want to think long-term how this could be funded sustainably. And a lot of folks really are interested. If you think about, some of the funding, for library programs and, Parks and Rec for, programs for Tai Chi and older adults. So there's often in New England already a lot of interest in something like this. So just kind of a thought of how you could kind of put your finger on the pulse of the community to see if they're interested.
Thank you, Kristen. That's helpful. I'm back to the just kind of logistics of trying to solicit and coordinate some feedback on something like this. We're under a pretty tight timeline, obviously, for coordinating much for town meeting, but that seems like a really natural opportunity to try to get some initial feedback. And I know that last year there were a couple of different initiatives of trying to solicit some feedback or interest at town meeting. So it seems to me like that would be our best opportunity for a first step of trying to get some. I mean, if we wanted to stand up, I would ask for some support from Catherine Catherine and Stephanie on trying to coordinate a poll of any sort through Front Porch Forum, but at least having something at town meeting, because I don't see that we'll be able to change the financial situation until there's another vote later in the year at a minimum, but even that's going to be halfway through our next fiscal year. So it seems like town meeting is kind of the next opportunity to coordinate around getting community feedback on a program. And that my question, I guess, to Stephanie and Catherine would be, are you feeling like you've got some good information here to kind of organize an overview about what a program like that could be? I mean, I think the letter kind of pretty well outlines it.
Stephanie's got her hand up.
Stephanie.
Yeah, I just think it's a really good idea. I think that we could probably put together maybe a little brief presentation for town meeting and then a survey. I mean, we could certainly have a survey there, and that could, because we do need a way of finding out what kind of interest there would be among the elderly people in town. And that's probably, and I guess Front Porch Forum, a survey in Front Porch Forum, a survey at town meeting. I'm sure we'd be able to get some time at town meeting to talk about it. So I think that's a great start to try to find out. And also, I think Catherine contacted somebody at Twin Valley Senior Center, and I'm not sure if she got anywhere, but I think that's another resource for finding out, people, because I'm sure there's people from Calais who go there. And if people have other ideas about how to go about, informing people about this and finding out what kind of interest there would be, let us know.
Yeah, again, I think my sense is going to be that without a whole lot of context, the community is going to need, a fair amount of education around like what the scope of the program could be, right? And so, and I think it'd be, given Kristen's, background and experience in this, and Catherine, your knowledge of these programs, and Stephanie as well, like, try to, I guess, have like a proposed framework about what a program like this could be, and what are the services that could be available to the community members to inform their feedback. Otherwise, it's gonna be a little too pie in the sky, and you're not gonna be able to get quality feedback.
I think the biggest, thing that people need to know is this is not a clinical thing, and that's the key to it. Because people are gonna think that if you come in there, and, oh, by the way, I've got this wound, can we do some wound care for it? No, sorry, I can't. But I will make sure that the wound nurse knows that you should be seen ASAP.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
I agree with what, has been suggested here, and I would just, suggest that if any survey does include this, I think important idea that Kristen's offering around the pilot, and would you be interested in supporting such a pilot? Because I think that scenario is something that would be, it's fine if people are interested in receiving the service, but are people interested in supporting it? Outside of, what we could do as a town, we want to try to gauge that even before we would use that as a tool to gauge interest, which I think is also a good suggestion, but I think this first step is important.
I just have a question. I think we gave you the link to Kristen's website. I think I sent it, or somebody sent it to you before. I just want to make sure you have that, because, there's a lot of resources in there. If you want to just go poke around and, learn more about it, it's a pretty comprehensive website.
It's on this page, but,
It's
Yeah, I think we'll find it. I think,
yeah, it's right there.
well, again, I want to acknowledge and express my appreciation for Stephanie and Catherine and Kristen for digging into this. You've been doing a fair amount of work to kind of organize these thoughts and bring this information to us. So thank you. I think at this point it'd be appropriate to kind of table the dialogue. We have some really good info. Maybe see if we can add it back as an agenda item in February to see if there's any way to coordinate, or maybe just have a brief discussion about what next steps can be about communicating that there's going to be an opportunity for community members to weigh in and provide feedback about a community nurse program. So if that's a front porch forum post or something, and just try to build a little bit of momentum around a communication effort before town meeting, and try to pull together whatever support we can, and trying to make that an efficient use of everybody's time.
Great.
Hopefully that
Thank you.
was about as clear as mud, but yeah. Thank you, Kristen. Really appreciate it.
Great work, thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. The next agenda item is the watershed grant program. Do we have anybody attending who's going to be speaking to that?
Noreen's in.
Noreen
Oh,
was
Noreen.
here.
Great.
Just so you know, this is Noreen Bryan. I'm here. I wasn't going to give you a presentation, but I certainly can answer any questions. Is that sufficient, or what was?
That sounds very sufficient. Yeah, so we in our share folder, there's the application for a grant relative to watershed grant program, and we're weighing a letter of support, but also included in there was a letter of support from the Conservation Commission and UVM EPL. Is that a fair characterization of what of the contents of what we have so far, Noreen?
Yeah, that's basically what you have in front of you.
Yeah.
Yes, and the main purpose of the right now we're trying to develop and we are in the process of developing a partnership with the UVM EPL folks. And the project of interest is Phragmites, which I think we may have talked about a little bit, but we're really concerned to address that early on while we still have relatively small colonies. And UVM EPL has done this successfully with knotweed in the Mad River Valley and is working on that. And we're really would be, how I would say, we would be moving on from that. In other words, we would be hopefully using the GIS tools that they've developed with some modification. We would create our own management plan, and that's all labor that's in kind. In other words, we're not asking for any of that as part of the grant. The monies in the grant exclusively address printing the newsletter, which we've done a number of years. And that would be to get out the word of what we're doing in 2026 relative to Phragmites, relative to this partnership, relative to if you're interested as a community member, how can you be involved? So most of the work is going to be in-kind labor. The actual grant just prints the newsletter.
So I have a question, Jordan,
Yeah, go ahead.
about the scope of the grant. Noreen, it looked like it was planning, but not so much implementation. It was public education and planning and getting the word out in the newsletter. When does the implementation happen?
Well, there's partial implementation this year. In other words, getting the planning done is really key. But we also hope to have the GIS tools up and running, which would mean we will then create surveys of exactly where the Phragmites exist today and how we're going to monitor it year to year. The UVM in the past has had grants to use interns, and they're having a hard time with grant money this year. So they're still struggling with that. If some of that grant money comes through, then hopefully we'll have some people in the field this summer, but that's an uncertainty. But we do have, we're really excited about it, a young member from East Calais named Neil Punsel, who you may know, who's just starting or getting involved in a ecological engineering, environmental engineering degree at UVM. And he's willing to take on the GIS tool mods and actually doing the field work to, basically do the survey. Where are these and how big they are and record them so that we've worked on this for a number of years, but we're really upping the science. In other words, we're going to have a much better, more scientific approach to monitoring this and making decisions on what needs to be done. So did I answer your question?
I think you did. I just was sort of picturing people going and ripping out a bunch of this stuff, but I understand that that the survey of where Phragmites lives here is an important piece of the puzzle. You need to know that.
And which places do we attack first?
Right.
Because there may be some controversy over that, but I mean, logically, usually you want to get the smallest infestations first, because control is the hardest thing, and if you can control it, that's the best.
And I think the education part is not to be diminished too. I mean, once you've done the research and the cataloging and inventorying and created a strategy, the communication around that and getting community engagement is an important part of the plan and a way to do it as efficiently as possible if you're getting people to participate in the program. I guess so. I guess the kind of decision in front of the select board is a weighing of the support and authorization of the lakes and streams or lakes and ponds committee applying on behalf of the town for the grant. And I guess to consider that, we just need clarification on whether or not there's a commitment of any financial commitment on behalf of the town. It doesn't look like it. You have a budget established that would be covered by the grant that you're applying for. Is that a fair understanding of that?
I think that is, we're not asking for monies. The one thing that they do require, but I believe you have, is you have to have insurance. But I think the town has insurance for other purposes that, so there's not a special insurance requirement for this project.
Do any of the other select board members have any questions, about this?
I think it's terrific.
I think
I
it's
support it
wonderful.
wholeheartedly.
Good idea. So that's, just me signing the letter of support. So I think we could entertain a motion, authorizing me to sign the letter of support on behalf of the select board. And a joint motion of authorizing the Lakes and Streams Committee to apply for a grant on behalf of the town for this watershed project. So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Very good. Well, thank you very much, Noreen, and we appreciate it. And I'll put a signature on here. But otherwise, I'd say you're free to proceed with applying for the grant.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Noreen.
Uh-huh.
Let us know how it goes.
I will, and I'll be working with Kari Bradley on this, and I mean, actually, the applicant really is the town, even though we're the ones who are doing the legwork, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, the next agenda item is an update on the Lightning Ridge Road right-of-way issue. Looks like we've got Doug in attendance, as well as maybe some other members of the Lilly family on Zoom. It's my understanding that the hay bales in question have been moved to date, and that was the requirement that was requested by the town. So thank you, Doug, for moving those.
I'm gonna tell you why I moved. Steve Price was out of hay.
Yeah,
Come and wanted, needs the hay, didn't have any. So I give him that hay, give it to him.
Okay.
To feed his cow. I'm still not happy about it, but I'm not done with this, I tell you right now.
well,
Too many people out there that want me to keep going.
and
That's all I can
if
say.
members
I've
of
been told
the,
not to talk.
well, if there are, if there's a broader conversation that needs to be had, then we'll put it on a future agenda and have the conversation,
Okay, I got a question. Had the cops come twice. And on that paper, it said, $100 or $10,000.
Yeah.
Who put that numbers down?
So, there, that is just,
Somebody wrote that in there.
yeah, that was a letter that the select board approved sending, and that is the language that is in our ordinance. It's also fairly common for any civil ordinance to have that's set by the state legislation and statute says what a town is authorized to weigh for a financial penalty. So that's just standard language as it appears in state legislation as well as in our ordinance. So it's not necessarily an indication of what the intention of any body is. It's just a statement.
Somebody wrote that in.
Yeah, so it's just a matter of communicating what are the possible outcomes for.
But you didn't answer my question. My question is, who wrote that number, those numbers in?
That letter came from the town. So that is that we as a select board reviewed that. And everybody on the select board had the opportunity to read that and weigh in on the contents of that letter. There was no single individual who's responsible for crafting any of it. It's a letter from the town.
Um,
It was also reviewed by the town's attorney.
yeah, well, you know. They also talked to let's see, who is he? The manager of the governor's office, the governor, lieutenant governor? Anybody talk to him?
I did not have a conversation with the lieutenant governor, no.
No?
I didn't get any contact from him, no.
Okay. Guess you lying to me. I don't know.
I don't have any information on that, Doug. I'm sorry. But where I see it right at this present moment, there's no further action to take on this subject. And I think we can.
I just wanna let you know, I'm not done, just gonna move it. I don't mean I'm not done.
I hear you.
I don't want you guys to think I'm a wimp and walk away.
Nobody,
That's not me.
I don't think, I wouldn't think that, not for once.
And I did find out that you're not a twin.
No, thank you. Yeah, that would have been pretty significant news for
I'm
me.
in Pennsylvania, and I found out you weren't a twin. They don't twin.
That's great news. Yeah.
That's good news for us.
Yeah, all right, very good. The next period, or the next agenda item is just public comment. The rest of the business on the agenda are things that we don't have generally any guests for. So I'd open up the meeting to a period of public comment for anybody who'd like to weigh in on any issues so far, or that don't, or raise issues that aren't currently scheduled to be taken up later in the agenda. Looks like on Zoom, Stephanie, you have a comment?
I do. It's sort of related to what the problem Doug has, but I just wanted to make a comment about the way the roads are being maintained and how they're being plowed, and how I've lived in Calais since 1984, it's about 42 years, and I have never seen the roads being plowed as wide as they are now. That is, it's always been the travel way would be plowed so it would be clear and safe. And now they're plowing so wide that they're going up against the trees. They're plowing about, it's like the way that they do their grading. They go as wide as they can till they hit the trees. And I've mentioned this over many years because I helped write the road standards that are completely ignored. That there's no point in widening the roads because the wider they are, the faster people go. And then everybody complains, oh my God, people drive so fast. And it's like what Calais is doing is the opposite of traffic calming, the absolutely opposite of traffic calming. So the roads are getting wider and wider. My little Jack Hill Road here is like a super highway now. I've lived on Jack Hill Road since 1987. I've never seen it being plowed like this. So my point is, and the reason I'm raising this in the context of Doug Lilly's issue, is that the town doesn't need to plow all the way to the trees. There's no reason why somebody should have to protect his trees with hay bales. I really think that there needs to be a reassessment of what's going on with the roads. Why are they graded so wide? Why are they plowed so wide? The travel way is the plow does the travel way. I just don't get it. And I've driven on Lightning Ridge Road, I've seen the hay bales, and it's like they're not obstructing the travel way. Of course, they're in the right of way. And from a legal standpoint, the town is correct. They shouldn't be in the right of way without a permit. but why the town is plowing so wide that it's actually hitting trees, and it is a mystery to me. And I just think, I've talked to Kari about this, not about the plowing, but about the widening, the constant widening. Every time the roads are graded, they get wider. And it completely is contrary to the whole purpose of the road standards and how they came about, because a bunch of Calais residents were worried, were concerned about how the roads are being maintained, and we're losing the small rural scenic beauty of the aspect of the town that is the roads, which is a big aspect of the town. Anyway, I just thought I would take this opportunity to, I'm not taking a side with Doug. I mean, yeah, there's the legal part, but then there's also the common sense part, you know, and maybe there should be a reevaluation of why are our roads being plowed so wide that people have to protect trees from being hit by the plow. And then the whole issue of the rest of the year and the road standards is another issue. Well, it's related, but I'm not asking to have a discussion about it now. I'm just saying my observation, and I've lived here a long time. I've lived on these back dirt roads for a long time. I've never seen them plowed as wide as they are now. And I just don't understand the reason why, other than the fact that the road crews got big plows, big wide plows, so they use them. Anyway, that's my comment. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. So with that, I think we'll close the public comment period. You know, I think the issues raised about the road maintenance, it warrants a separate conversation. While somewhat related, is not entirely appropriate to kind of take up now, but requires scheduling more time around.
Did you look up and find that, I think you were gonna look it up, find where I sued the town and they treated other people different than treated me, and I took them to court?
I'm not aware of that, Doug.
Was it in the folder you handed you? Or was
Yeah,
it-
remember Doug, we looked at two files, or two different lawsuits, and I don't believe either of them were the one that you were referring to. So I don't know where that file is.
I found the folder with legal documents and I handed it to Carrie. I didn't look closely at what they were because you were in the office.
And one had to do with tax stabilization, and the other had to do with,
So
Steve or
Lois
something
Frank's
like
got a
that.
tax rate. And I didn't. So I
Right.
sued the town, because you can't treat a taxpayer different than the other, one, and the courts ruled that I was right, town was wrong. So the amount, you see that in there?
oh,
So
I did.
So I got $3,600 from the town. I represented myself.
I can't speak to that, Doug, and
I
we're
know.
gonna move on. If there's something else for us to consider outside of the purview of what we were discussing tonight, related to lawsuits, then that will have to come on another meeting. And we'll have the opportunity.
And bring that up again, I'm not going to,
Okay,
tell me you
but-
can't, I
but-
can't talk to you.
We've got other business to conduct tonight, and that's what we're gonna do.
Okay.
So it needs to be put, all right, thank you. So the next item on the agenda is tax payment postmark issue that warrants some discussion. Kari, do you want to give some context to this?
So this year, this is my first experience with this. Apparently it has come up in the past, but not last year. It was my first year participating in tax collection, but we had small number of residents report that they dropped off their payment in the mail in the post office on the due date or before. And that by the time we received it at the office, it had a postmark with a later date. And I know of at least one other person that felt strongly that this had happened to them. They said at the East Calais post office, but they accepted that the staff traditionally just works off of the postmark. That's the only evidence that we have to judge. This one person accepted that. More recently, I had a resident that was just vehement saying, no, this is not my fault. It's the post office's fault. And he kept asking, what are you gonna do about it? What are we gonna do about it? And I said, I don't have a solution. I had already talked to I had talked to the attorney about a related matter, something else. But basically, my interpretation is what is, black and white, what the article that was voted on at town meeting. But he kept pressing, and I said, okay, well, all I can say is if the select board told me to interpret it differently from what I'm reading, I would do that. And then I had a conversation with our attorney about it. They said, to the extent this is a new issue that you've not been seeing, he said, I suppose that something in writing from the post office saying we didn't postmark letters on that day, the day in question, that's something that the select board could accept as a reasonable interpretation. He said that would provide enough cover in his judgment. So that is an option. We could use that interpretation to be equitable. We would want to offer that option to other people. I know of one other resident by name. I believe there are others that reported this on the phone. I don't have any other names. It seems like we would, I don't know how we would handle it in terms of making that solution available to other people. But I did want to bring this to you and discuss it. The penalty and interest, the penalty is 8%. So it can be significant for, for one late payment. In the case of the person who pressed me, it's just under $400 total. In the other case, it was about $100. So just to give you a sense, and these are penalties and interest. It's not budgeted. It's not, we're not relying on it, but it's just applying the rules.
Tegan?
Just want to add, I think part of the reason this hasn't been an issue in the past, part of it is the postal service is changing. Part of it is that we used to have the grace period after the due date, and now we don't have the grace period. And a number of clerks and treasurers talk about how they've just eliminated the postmark option altogether, and payment just has to be there at the time, no matter what. At 5 o'clock, Kari could do all his tax paperwork and be done with it, that kind of a thing.
That's the next agenda item, but for now, like, what do we do about 2025? I think is the question.
I mean, I think it's worth both acknowledging that the relative to other things coming in from through the postal service. I mean, we're regularly getting stuff that seems to be getting filtered through Connecticut, like the efficiencies of the postal service over the last couple of years are significantly different. But I think the other thing to acknowledge is like these types of situations are really problematic from a staff perspective. I mean, this takes up a lot of time. You have folks who are coming in rightfully frustrated if they felt like they deposited something at a point in time that they thought was acceptable, and then it gets delayed, and that puts the town in a position where we're having to get into a they said we said type situation, and that doesn't even take into consideration whether or not something's so late that it requires notices to go out, and other expenses incurred by the town aside from just staff time.
I do want to mention that we have this insert that we sent out with the bill, and there's a lot of guidance on a two-sided sheet, and it doesn't include this issue. It's not something that we've coached people on being aware that it could come up.
It doesn't address which.
The issue that you might deliver your, you shouldn't count on the postmark.
Right. No, you can't count.
on the day that you drop it off.
Yeah.
something Barbara has told people on the phone for the last 6 months, when they call and say, oh, can I just drop it in the post office today, the due date, does that work? And she said, yes, but you have to tell the person working there to stamp it with a postmark there. If you ask them to, they will hand stamp it with a postmark, and we had a number of them that had hand stamped postmarks that were on the due date, and then Burlington or other place postmarks that were printed on that were the next day. So, but that's a piecemeal way of doing things, like Cory said, it hadn't been on the guidance.
It just seems to me obtaining, we'd have to obtain it from every post office in the country. I'm being facetious, but like, somebody can drop, if I'm in New York on the day that it's due, I can drop it there and have it.
I would think we'd ask the taxpayer to obtain the,
Oh, the
state.
taxpayer, it would be their burden.
Yeah, I would think,
But
because
I
it's
just
different
like-
post offices.
Fairness, like how on earth? And so that's one thing, and then the other piece is the question of like, how many are we talking about? Or,
Well, see, I don't
Next year.
even know. I mean, anybody who received the penalty could make this claim as far
well,
as
so
I understand.
what's the volume of number of people that have received penalties this year, do we?
No, it was
What
about,
is that?
it was in the ballpark of the typical amount. I think.
Okay. Normal.
Yeah, and I have no idea how a post office would respond to a request like that either. Like,
Yeah.
on November
I mean, how
17th,
did
did you postmark or did you not postmark? Or-
The
And
only
it's,
way it would be is if somebody was on staff or not on staff that day or something. I mean,
I had no idea, yeah, maybe, it might be that they typically don't postmark and ship all their stuff off to Burlington, I don't know.
Or if you drop it in a mailbox that isn't collected and, it's like you have to pay attention
It's
to
absolutely-
when it's gonna be collected and whether or not it's gonna be postmarked. And, for me, the equity of the application of the rule seems problematic, whether it's a grace period, postmark date, et cetera, et cetera. I personally am most curious about, exploring just removing the postmark requirement and just having the due date.
yes,
And-
I was gonna say, I thought that suggestion and
Yeah.
vetting it, having already vetted it with other clerks, that it makes perfect sense to do that forward, but I don't know where it leaves you.
Okay, good.
I don't know where,
due, just get it there.
I don't know where it leaves you in terms of the complaint you have. Just to change it for the coming year.
Well, we just had a Board of Abatement meeting. I mean, would it be grounds for going to the Board of Abatement and setting up?
It doesn't qualify.
It doesn't qualify?
It wasn't an error, it wasn't an error by a lister, and it,
But there's other grounds and I don't know them all.
it doesn't qualify.
Okay,
It'd have to be inability to pay, and this person's not making that claim. They reviewed the criteria themselves.
okay. Thank you. So we're still not answering your question, Kari. We're commiserating.
I mean, does the select board have the authority to make that change? Isn't it only the Board of Abatement that can?
No, this would be an interpretation of the article that was voted on.
And the article said it has to be it's postmarked by the due date.
Yeah,
On or before the.
Yeah.
Which is.
I don't see how we
really
would interpret it any other way.
That's correct.
Right.
the attorney was a little surprised he was giving me this option. He said, this is out of character for me. But it's a somewhat new issue
Right.
that, you could see a good faith effort by a taxpayer saying, but if someone's new to town, he's new to town, never really experienced
Yeah,
it.
I mean, I
Yeah.
fully get and sympathize with the frustration, but I don't see from our standpoint there being a lot of flexibility. I mean, I think it's written very clearly.
That's the perspective I'm coming from too. And it's hard to say, just, no, sorry.
And it seems like the amount of staff labor time it would take to find a workaround by finding all the people who might be affected and developing a process for them to have an opportunity to contact the post office. It just seems really complicated to me.
I know people that paid it a year early. And what happened, you give money back to them, or give them interest, or no? They made a mistake and paid it a whole year early, and you know it, and I know it.
I'm not aware of that, Doug.
Huh?
I'm not, I can't comment on that. I'm not.
Okay.
I'm failing to see the point.
Anyway. Let's get it really simple.
So,
Fell down, and I
Okay, so
could.
I'm hearing that there's not support for changing the interpretation.
I don't see how we could just for one, without considering looking at all of the circumstances under which somebody has paid late.
When you say it's sort of the normal amount of late, are we talking like 5 people or 40 people or?
Oh, no, it's, you know, it started out as probably, I'm sorry, 3 pages on that delinquent tax report, or maybe 60.
Okay, so it is a significant, it just seems to me hugely labor intensive to try that.
There's no way after the fact that we can.
Yeah, we don't have to put out a message, like, if you,
Yeah.
Right,
if you're in this circumstances, contact, you know,
No.
it's inviting
right.
trouble.
I think if there was something, like, there's nothing wrong with our language.
Right.
And it is commonly known, because we all experience the postal system, what's going on with it, you know, and so I feel for the person, but I also, this is a person who's decided to wait for the last day and didn't physically see the postmark, and that is also their response, you know, that's
Yeah.
on them as a citizen, and I hate to hold the line on that. I mean, I don't hate to, I think the line is clear, and I'm sorry about the implications, but I think that, and I think we're also acknowledging that we're living in a different time, and I do fully support changing the language going forward.
So, yeah, I'm not hearing consensus on any relief, a decision around relief here. It sounds like everybody is interpreting the requirements pretty clearly. I'd say it also sounds like there's consensus around entertaining changing the language to kind of avoid the situation and ambiguity in the future, especially considering there are other communities who have gone that way as well. So I guess put this over to Kari and maybe Tegan to put together a recommendation for when and how it would be appropriate to change that language. I guess it would have to be.
Already in your book.
Yeah, there's,
I'm sorry.
there's a proposal to
Next on the
update your
agenda.
warning.
Oh, right. There.
Yeah,
Right.
so, and I consulted with the attorney on the proper language. I kind of like what he came up with,
Yeah.
actually. Because it retains, well, I looked at other towns and they basically just say payment received at the town office by a date certain.
Right.
Here, we're preserving you can hand deliver it yourself, or you can bring it by
I see.
USPS, you can deliver it by USPS or other courier by that date certain.
Right.
You know, maybe in future years, we wouldn't need both of those, they're equivalent, but you're pointing out that there are different ways to get it here.
And why is there the question mark about the ACH?
I think that.
There's a question mark at the end there.
It's just
Oh,
the
that's
article.
part of the, I'm sorry,
Whole
yes,
question.
okay, gotcha. That's confusing, okay.
Yeah.
Christy, were you saying something there?
No, I was just answering your question. It's
Okay,
just,
thank you.
it's the article.
Yeah.
So that moves us on to discussion about the town meeting warning, I guess.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Yeah.
There we go. So
you know, Jordan,
I think that we have the two warnings that are prepared. One of them includes that language, and everybody was up to speed except for me there. And
Jordan, you raised the one
Yeah.
concern I would have would be access for people who rely on the
Yeah.
mail, to get that payment in, and I think that's more or less addressed by the fact that we're mailing out, the tax bills at least a month early, and
Yeah.
in general, people know the due date. I mean, it's been the same for many years, they know much earlier than that. That's for the first payment, the second payment is 2 months after that. And I would say that we do have a solid additional option now with the ACH. That works, we've demonstrated that works, so it's not for everybody, but it is an option.
When you receive payments, do you deposit them soon, or do you wait till the due date to deposit it?
It depends, just on the timing, we get so many payments at around the due date, that it can take several days to process these tax payments.
Okay.
Now that we have remote deposit, we have the ability to speed that up quite.
Oh, nice. That's right.
Scanning.
We talked about that, yeah.
But credit cards and ACH are day of.
Okay.
So I'm wondering about the language, and by delivery to the town treasurer by 4 PM on the due date, and I'm wondering if it's more appropriate to call that the town office, and we have a Dropbox at the town office that could be utilized, and whether or not it makes sense to just say that it has to be deposited at the town office by the due date. And I think that
Without a time?
well, I mean, the assumption around the time is it needs to be handed to a person presumably, or before it closes, but I think that you have a situation like today, for instance, where it's weather that is fairly,
Yeah, but he
I think that-
just stayed at the office until
Yeah,
5.
I think having a time certain is.
Yeah,
a time certain.
I think so.
I think it's good.
Does it make sense?
We had a dispute about that as well, and I stayed till 5, and they still disputed.
Well, I saw that. I was in the town office on the day the taxes were due, and people were coming in after 4 o'clock. And like, expecting that by 5 o'clock was timely, and, people don't remember exactly what was the wording of the warning. So some people thought it was till midnight, some people, people are always going to have issues. So, yeah, I don't know.
Are you advocating for removing the time?
I would say 5 o'clock, because that's the hour that the office closes, isn't it? Why is
No,
it an hour before the
more-
office closes? That seems counterintuitive. Like, that caught people off guard.
The office closes at 4, the 5 o'clock is just a statutory thing.
Yeah,
That was for the
that's
elections.
For the election. The office closes at 4.
Oh, why didn't it that day? Okay. We were just there at 5, I guess.
Part was just being nice.
Yeah, I just hung out later.
Yeah,
at the tax
okay.
office.
Yeah, you were just being nice. That's it.
Yeah.
I do wonder, I had the same thought as Jordan on to the town treasurer versus the town office. Does it have to be, and I looked at last year and it just says the treasurer.
Yeah,
I don't know. if
I
that-
never really thought about it, I
Yeah.
guess
But yeah, well, knowing that the treasurer doesn't have to be a resident of the town, and if somebody went to the website and saw that the town treasurer was somebody who maybe isn't a resident of the town, I don't know, I'm just playing like crazy devil's advocate here.
I think it's actually a little bit vague, like the due date is vague, and the instructions are on the tax bill as to
Okay.
where you need to mail,
Okay.
when and where.
Okay. Well, that's as much as I'm gonna say about it. So if it, 4 o'clock aligns with the published time of closure of the town office, and town treasurer is the one responsible for receiving it, that is fine for me. Are there any other items for discussion with the prepared warning? We've looked at it a couple of times now. That was a last minute edit that needed some further dialogue, for sure. Does anybody see any other issues, concerns
For the warning
with the warning
itself.
as amended?
Getting posted around town this coming weekend, so now is the time to catch it in my head.
I do not. So with that, can I get a motion to approve the town warning as reviewed and discussed this evening?
I think we might need to also rescind the prior version, since that was approved last time. You do it in one motion, don't
Sure. So that'd be a joint motion to rescind the previously approved town warning that was approved the last meeting, and now has been updated to include language around the changing of property tax due instructions. So that would be a motion to approve and sign it this evening.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you.
Great, that's good.
Just remember to go, question mark. Just remember.
So we've rescinded, moving on to the
Everything needs to be there.
fiscal 2027 budget conversation. And this is an opportunity to review the treasurer's calculation of the FY 2026 income and estimated impact on tax rates, as well as a moment of reflection on how the budget process went.
6 months of budgeting.
6 months of budgeting. So I think we should start with some dialogue around the estimated tax impacts. Is everybody able to find? The credit
Yeah,
posted?
so this is a FYI, really, it's a
Yeah.
preview what's gonna be in the town report and then the tax rate calculation that'll come later this year. But basically, there's not a lot of, there's no significant changes really, in terms of income. Unfortunately, I did pull out the tax collection fee as the auditor requested or advised, but it's just coming out of, we have been treating it as current taxes in the past. So the, the big takeaway for me is that unless we grow the grand list, we're just absorbing all the additional expense, and we're not able to spread it out over, more people. It's just, it's just dollar for dollar to the tax rate, so.
Yeah.
That's what this exercise shows me.
Maybe a Dollar General.
The record reflect that Bill is recommending. I would have gone with a farm, yeah, I think that's a real serious question, and I think that this kind of circles back to the conversation that we were having at the beginning of this meeting about how to stand up more resources in the community, with no fewer community members, and the demographics, like without growing the grand list, more and more the individuals in the community are going to be on fixed incomes, and there's going to be a incentive to want to try to keep taxes as low as possible, and how do we pay for all of the things? I mean, it comes into so many different issues with like funding the road maintenance that we need to. We're gonna have inflationary costs that continue to pressure our ability to just perform the basic functions of the town. And how do we grow the grand list? That's not a problem that's gonna get solved tonight, but it's pretty stark, and I think the last couple of years of budgeting process have, like, that's becoming increasingly palpable level of like urgency. So much work gets put into going through the budget with a fine tooth comb, and the requests are noble in wanting to stand up programming and resources in the community. But they come with a pretty significant costs. And what I think is a little frustrating as a member of the governing body is that all you end up getting is the requests, and you don't really get a lot of feedback on, well, we should cut this so that we can afford this, and it's really hard to make those decisions in a vacuum, which is just like a personal appeal. It's like, engage in the budgeting process, because like those are the decisions that need to be weighed at a fundamental level.
And all the things we do fund are going up at an exponential rate. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it's really,
And yet we're still better off than the schools
yeah,
Yeah.
for a little while.
right.
We're better off than some of our neighbors in terms of, what
That's true.
the rates I was hearing from somebody in Middlesex was saying, that their rates are going up, their budget has gone up, double digits.
Yeah, well, their grant list is going down, because they've had, what's that word, turn up properties.
Yeah, it seems to me like we're, as a community, we're gonna need to decide to figure out like how we wanna see growth in the community, and how do we want to incentivize or encourage or facilitate adding to the grant list. That really is a matter of like literally adding more places for people to live and engage in the community, and how do we want that to happen, and what programs, and what's the plan, and what are the priorities, and that I think is going to have to be a kind of a call to action to the planning committee and commission.
Agreed. I mean, I think we have, part of the new town plan, there's already some framework there for us to move on, and the question is, when and how are we gonna move on it?
Mhm.
And, I don't know how deep you wanna get into that, but that's about securing additional volunteer support and getting some committees stood up and starting the conversation sooner than later.
Yeah. Well, let's table those problems because we're not going to solve them tonight, but we did this last year. We've now kind of wrapped our budget preparations for the warning, et cetera. And we took the opportunity last year to just kind of reflect on the process and solicit feedback, so that when we revisit it in what seems like not too many months from now, and start the process over, we're doing a continuous improvement loop here. So I'll start by saying thank you to everybody who participated, both community members and Kari, for helping to shepherd this project and process through. It's been phenomenally supported by Kari during his years of involvement, and I think if you kind of look back in the not too distant past of how the town largely dealt with kind of considering and weighing these things rather than having a handful of special meetings that were super intense, like we're spreading this out and giving opportunity for various interest groups and stakeholders to participate in a little more structured fashion. And that certainly makes the numbers more palatable from my perspective. And this is a process that I think is worth continuing. We've got.
Are you happy with the way you're interacting with the committees? I mean, you're getting the request makes sense and thought through and information you need.
I think comparative information is really important. So one of the things I'm, and I would say that about sort of us looking at the bigger picture as well as when folks are coming in. I would want them to say, here's what we've been doing for the last 2 years. This is where we're at now. This is what we want to ask for from you. On their own, and both in terms of what they've accomplished, but also what they are, financially, what they're looking for.
I was thinking it might be helpful for me, just putting it together, to send them basically that budget template that shows the budgeted, actual budgeted, and then what's your budget, has that four columns. And then you could see what the progression is when you're reviewing that.
Or not to get into like the micromanaging semantics of the whole thing, but I think to Barbara's point, it's easy to get a year or two away from a decision that was made about a particular reduction. So if I think about reductions that were made when I started at the beginning of my term, there were economic pressures that said, we're going to have to cut this budget by half. But at that time, there was a loose commitment to say, if things change, we'll try to get back to a certain. So it's easy to lose track of that type of context. And I think it would be helpful if there was like a worksheet of sorts for the committees to have that outlines that, here was the request for a year and the actual spend for a year, with maybe like a hit list of like what was intended, what were the intentions of use for that particular year, or like goals. If there were going to be like if there was I think the Conservation Commission is a good example. They had very specific short and medium term goals that are associated with their request for this year. So having those, I think, outlined, I think it also, makes it a little bit easier for them to engage in the process. If we kind of structure it a little bit more.
And I just think it would be good if it was a little bit more apples to apples from committee to
committee.
And the other thing is just, I've only done this 1 year, so I do think having them come in is really helpful, but I just think it does use a considerable amount of select board time. So I just wonder to what extent. Anyway, but just a thought about that of like, having the report prepared, something prepared for us in advance. We're just trying to get at that efficiency a little bit. Because it strikes me how precious the time is that we have. And how little discussion we get to have as a result of some of how things go. Not criticism, but just, thinking about it.
Or sometimes the opposite, the amount of time that ends up getting spent, like just kind of phrasing or like presenting the request, which sometimes I think gets into commentary that's just not as relevant or necessary, and because maybe the committees are only getting 1 or 2 times in front of the select board a year, and so now they feel like they need to kind of state their case as to like what they do and like. And I wonder if like having a template for folks to engage in.
I think that'll help that.
Will help
to some
that.
extent,
Yeah. So you're not getting the extra commentary. If they want to provide supplemental context for a very specific proposal, by all means, but we don't have to get into the weeds of those things.
But I feel like part of that is the way, you know, we've sort of framed it too as this is your chance for your annual or biannual check-in with the select board. We wanna hear what they're up to. We
Right.
wanna hear what their plans are. And so if we wanna sort of curtail that a little bit in the budget portion, we might consider providing another opportunity to get more of the dialogue and update, because I think that back and forth between the select board and each committee is super valuable.
Agreed.
Mhm.
But it's
just
not-
whether
but
it's
it-
part of the
it-
budget
right,
conversation
right.
is the question.
Yeah, well, that's not entirely true. I mean, I think that like there was an intention to try to schedule, like it started with trying to bring structure to the budgeting process. And then the intention was always to be to provide another earlier in the season, a check-in.
Right.
The question is like, okay, so now you have like, we're trying to get structured around so many things and our annual schedule as a select board where it's just like you're getting installed in March after town meeting, and then you're trying to prepare for considerations of appointments, which we've now aligned with like kind of the fiscal year turnover, which I think makes a lot of sense. That gives us an air gap of any new members being able to get up to speed with like regular business stuff, which I think is really important for making those types of decisions. But now you're between July and basically the end of September trying to work, you know, committee meetings in. And I wonder, like, if we get more efficient at going through the budgeting process, I felt like this year we had a lot of time budgeted for it, but we didn't also need a whole lot of like deep discussion. I wonder if we agree on like a template for people to participate in that goes out at the beginning of September or something like that. If there are big requests, then or specific requests for specific projects, then we provide time for folks to come in and have dedicated conversations about that. But otherwise, we push like the budgeting a little bit further back in the year, so that it's like mid-October when we're just having more abbreviated check-ins with committees, and hopefully we've already gotten some of that context. That'd be a revisiting, I guess, of the budgeting schedule, but.
Yeah, and a form, I think that could be really helpful, so maybe we'll draft something up this spring or something, and maybe take a look at it.
So one of the other pieces of feedback I had for Kari when we were doing our agenda planning, you know, so much of our budget is driven by the highway department, and between, you know, Kari and John, I think we're getting really, you know, really good information, but I still feel like there's, from my perspective at least, it's just a review of the numbers, and there's not much discussion about what those numbers mean for like material budgets or feedback on or an update on like what we ran into for truck maintenance, or dialogue around like what our adjustments need to be for certain capital planning. And I'm wondering if it would make sense to provide some more scheduled time to kind of get into the weeds on that kind of on those subjects. You know, especially with the material purchasing, like we're now going into another year where we've been incrementally trying to increase or right size our material budgets relative to our actual use and need, because my experience was that was underfunded and anemic, and we were perpetually overspending. So the course correction has been incremental, because you don't want to just say, well, okay, we're doubling the budget this year, and that's not fair to taxpayers. But I think we lose sight of trying to make that course correction a little bit as we go through multiple years of the budgeting process. And I feel like if we had a longer time to look at that with greater context to what we did last year. Almost like a year-end report or a season's end report or something.
And perhaps also include equipment. I mean, how do they feel the equipment is working for them? What would they like to see different about
Yeah.
it? You know, maybe we don't buy Viking trucks anymore. Maybe we do something different. I don't know, those type of things too. Listen to what they have to say about it, because they're the ones that use them every day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's really important information for the select board to hear.
Yeah.
And when does it make sense to do that?
Yeah, well, after like the fiscal year, you do a summary report and then that kind of preps us for budgeting for the next year. Like that idea.
The other thing I was thinking about was, just being able to see how we're doing against budget, in the current year.
Yeah,
While we're doing the budgeting process, like if one of the columns can be spending to date for the
Oh.
current fiscal year,
okay,
just so we can see if we're wildly out of whack. I don't know if it's useful, maybe it's not,
yeah.
maybe there's not enough there to say.
It might
Well-
depend on the issue, because like you wouldn't have used N. You know, maybe a different for salt budget versus gravel.
Right,
budget.
right.
Depends on when it is.
We have percent used on there now, don't we?
Well, it's just in terms of like, are we
For the
budgeting
Current year.
budget to budget, or are we budgeting?
Well, the problem is we're like budgeting, we're looking at like a fiscal year budget 2 years ago, technically 2 years ago.
Yeah. And how it.
And we're setting a budget a year in advance, so we're not.
That's why I'm saying, like,
Yeah.
if we get to a 6-month part
Mm.
and we see where we're at. Anyway.
I know
it's
what you
just
mean.
And then forecasting to see how we're gonna end up the year.
Right.
Anyway, it's part of a normal process
Yeah.
that would,
I mean, I'm used to budgeting near the end of your year, so you like
Right,
probably know what 3/4 of your.
exactly.
And in this case, we start budgeting at the beginning of the
Yeah.
fiscal year.
yeah.
Right, and so things might start to emerge.
I guess I would
Yeah.
just say that's a place where, it might be just at your discretion, but if there's items that are really accelerated in terms of spending or different than what we
Yeah.
budgeted,
Yeah,
we
Be
should
good to
take
know
note
about.
of that. And
Yeah.
maybe you already are in your own head, Kari, but I feel like I wasn't necessarily aware of that one or
Yeah.
another.
Hey, maybe a dedicated meeting at the end of the fiscal year before we've started budgeting, so that we're doing like that, at least like if we're seeing. In this particular case, we're seeing in July. What our actual spend was relative to the FY 25, and we have already voted on what the budget's gonna be for the FY 26, and we're gonna get ready to start going into the FY 27.
Yeah,
So having a dedicated meeting of saying like, of revisiting before we start the next fiscal process of this is
Yeah,
how we did, this is how we course corrected. And do we need to make an adjustment as we go into the
maybe
next cycle?
that's what.
Cause he brings the annual financial report, usually the first or second meeting in July. And
Yeah.
has the list of everything,
Yeah.
budgeted and everything
Yeah.
spent,
but
but
it's actually not included in that
In-
budget format.
Right.
Yeah,
Right, because it's, hasn't been audited yet, and it's just,
right,
but we
Yeah,
could make it a connection tighter.
yeah.
And the other thing I was gonna just raise is that there's been some, I don't know what the precedent has been in the past, but just the question around transparency to the public.
Yeah.
About the process and what folks are, I'd love to understand what the select board members think of this and what. I don't know what past practice was, if if other towns are more transparent than we are. I don't feel like there's some critical issue, like, I just have heard it from a couple of different, in a couple of different places that the question raised of like, during the process, can the select board provide us an update on what's happening?
Well, So I wonder, like, a couple meetings ago, we had a conversation about updating the website, you know, I think it gets tricky to like do a packet. Post, because there's so much potential for sensitive information, like in our shared drive, like, and I also think like administratively, just like sharing an entire packet would be difficult, and burdensome, and it's also just a bunch of stuff that's just out there. But because we've gotten structured around like what the schedule is, and what the process is, if we had if on what would be the select board page, we had a schedule of like, here are the things that we're going to, like, what our annual schedule is,
Process.
and one that was actually called out for the budget, that had a recent addition of whatever the budget worksheet is, so that there's like a centralized location for people to engage, at least with like the budgeting process.
Well, I think it's just that you end up with, so maybe it's halfway through the budgeting process or something like that, you're getting at an opportunity for people to actually see where we're at.
Yeah.
You know, and hear from us that, we're at 6% and we're trying to get to 5, or whatever it might be. I just, it's I would imagine very difficult to understand where we're at, even though, of course, we're warning these meetings and people can come to the meeting and everything else, but there's nothing for them to see until the end.
That was, I thought when I used to come to meetings once in a while, you know, they'd be talking about, but there was nothing ever to look at or to understand what was being talked about.
And I think it's concerning. I mean, anyway, sorry.
I certainly don't think people should be going into our
Mm-mm.
any of our servers.
No,
It should be, yeah,
yeah.
but, yeah.
But even maintaining like a public duplicate of like some sort of packet, and I know the example of like the school board making their meeting packet available to the public when at the time they wanted it. I think that's great for the school board that they do that, and I think that could be really difficult for us.
I'm not suggesting.
Yeah, no, I know you're not. Nobody is suggesting that, but
I'm just asking about the budget process.
But I do think that like the budget schedule and the budget worksheet it wouldn't be too difficult to put those on a very obvious place of the website, and then as we're either in the warning or communicating to the community, saying, this is where it is, like, this is where you go to find it if you want to go to find it, and then it's on the website and accessible, and people have access to the most up-to-date version of the worksheet.
Something.
Because I think that would be pretty easy to do.
Well, that is like posting an excerpt from the packet. Yeah, I could see doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, the only downside of that is like, well, we're still making the sausage, right? Like, you don't really have, if you just look at it, like, oh, that looks outrageous, so maybe that brings you to a meeting or something, I don't know. But I think the first layer is just to make it accessible, right? This information is available if you want it. If you want more information, you're gonna have to ask, but there is value in having it published.
Yes, at some point, maybe, I don't know.
Well,
Sorry, Jamie.
we could have some language, wherever it's posted, we could have some language that sort of explains our process, right?
Yes.
Cause people might not understand that our general process is to like put everything in, all the wish list items in the first draft.
Right.
And then gradually scale back.
Right.
So yeah, it might have that sort of sticker shock.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask. I know the school board has been trying to post updates to Front Porch Forum and then things change, and I wonder if a brief update from you all after every budget oriented meeting, just to say, here's the quick bullet points of kind of the big things we talked about and the changes that I know it's work. And
is that would be in the minutes anyway, right? Although
it would probably be mostly drawn from the minutes, it's just that people only some people will go and look at all the minutes and watch the Zoom video and do all that, whereas I think if it was a paragraph on Front Porch Forum, people would be more likely to see it and discuss it.
And I feel like you sometimes do that.
Yeah, I think we could make some strides here.
Sure.
Again, we don't have to go to
Yeah.
all the way to the deep end. I just think it's just a inclusion
Mhm.
effort,
Yeah.
that I'm thinking about, yeah.
Well, we've noted sometimes a little preemptive communication saves us some emails and phone calls, so it's
Right,
not always
yeah.
gonna take more time to do this, sometimes it will save us time and effort in the long run.
Very good. Well, thank you for that discussion. Town,
Could I just ask one question?
yes, sir.
The delinquent tax report, is that final number, is that up or down from where we usually are? 91,000 right now.
Well, it changes, and we're constantly collecting payments.
Yeah, there's.
But is that a high number for us, or is that about a reasonable number for this time of year?
It's high.
For this time of
Okay.
year, I don't have enough experience.
Okay,
But one thing I look at is the penalty,
yeah,
and that's actually a little lower. I think it was more like 9,000 last year
okay,
in total penalties, so people were more timely, it appears this year, because it was only 6,378. Actually, less than that, because that 2025 is 5,500, so that's definitely down from us,
okay,
which is good news.
all right. Yeah, I'm just trying to. Share
But,
where we're
but
going.
this changes basically every 2 weeks.
Uh-huh.
Sandra does, she processes every couple weeks.
What's
Okay.
what's the total due right now?
90,676.
So the report from January 11th, 2025 is 94,000. Spot on.
I think there's a lot of consistency,
Okay, all right.
including you.
Moving on to, continued town meeting preparations. We have, a final review of the, select board report, which was so graciously, prepared by Christie and edited, and posted to the share drive. Does anybody have any further comment on that report and the language? It's now been updated with more refined numbers relative to the budgeting process.
Popped it in the town report draft today just to get a sense of how long it is and how many pages I need, and I didn't see any glaring things when I reviewed it, so thank you.
And the new language was just the one bullet, right, Christine? Other than
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, because we talked last time about at least acknowledging that the school is a thing happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought that was well done.
Well, thank you, Christie, for making that updated. I think that language works really well. I think we're in pretty good shape at this point. And so I don't think it technically needs to be a motion to approve the report. But we can acknowledge, it sounds like everybody's on board with having that posted to town meeting warning as it's been prepared. Does that sound right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Christie.
You are welcome.
Also, the approval of the approval of the select board, I don't think it needs to be in action, but discussion of town meeting presentation and anticipated questions.
So we have 2 more meetings before town meeting, so we don't necessarily have to go too deep on this, but I know that in the past, we've had a plan for each of the articles on the warning, like someone who would either proactively speak to it or respond to questions. So we could do something like that again this year. And then the other piece was just anticipating some questions that could come up and put in a draft there. It was really early draft, that I found some mistakes that were just holdovers from past years, so there's.
Yeah, there's some language from last year.
Yeah,
Um,
but I always find this useful just for my own sake, just preparing.
yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess I'm not feeling like there are a ton of hot button issues that we've been dealing with of late that would like in the last couple of iterations of coming up. Yeah, I feel like there was more to discuss, more to be clear about, and or more to summarize and recap on, whether it's flooding events, et cetera, and I guess maybe this is feeling like a more normal year than most, and just being prepared to speak to, what the general increase. I don't know what kind of feedback we would otherwise be getting. I think the big issue is gonna be the school and the results of the vote in another week, and what are we going to, how do we respond to that? And so that part of me feels like there's not much to discuss here other than a handful of these items, and then seeing where that vote turns out, or how that vote turns out, and being prepared to respond to the outcome of that. Is that a fairly fair
So
assessment?
mostly you're talking about the facility, like if the vote is to close it, what's the town gonna do? What's our approach?
Yeah, or to keep it
think we're
open.
gonna
I mean,
see a lot
one
of
way or the
discussion.
other, I just think there's gonna be a lot of discussion, that's gonna come as a result of that. There's gonna be so many things to figure out one way or the other, and that's gonna be for the school board to largely figure out, with only a handful of exceptions being like, vote to consolidate or close the school, that then puts the town in a position of having to make a decision around, acquiring a school and managing the facility, which seems like a very specific thing to respond to relative to a specific outcome. But even that hinges on a decision by the school board to make a decision or to execute the decision of the voters, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this, other than I guess I'm doing a gut check to see if anybody else feels like there's a particular subject matter that they're anticipating.
So I anticipate we'd do something like last year, right, make a short budget presentation, that'd be one proactive. I think we should be ready to speak to the real estate acquisition fund. Someone
Yeah.
has to be able to explain why and why only 500. And, the reappraisal, that's Barbara raised that, I think that's right, we should probably proactively speak to that, just saying. It's behind schedule, but it will be done this spring, and here's how it's likely to impact things. And I can do that if you like, or someone else can take that, but I do think that will be worth proactively addressing.
Christie, does your report state that it's done? The reappraisal?
I think
Um,
we said we were doing it.
Okay, we should
Let me-
just make.
let me
sure.
check.
I should look myself instead of just having other people
Sorry,
check.
it wasn't.
It does say Calais conducted a townwide assessment.
So I
To
guess that's
complete
true,
all-
right? They just haven't completed the.
They haven't completed all the field work.
You
I don't
contracted
believe.
with NEMREC. Is it true that it'll be implemented in 2026 tax year? The
Yes,
new values?
yes, that's right.
All right, well, that's what we say. So what is it that's delayed then, Kari? I missed this
Just
memo.
the field work is, and the posting of data is behind the schedule that we were initially provided.
So it's not completed, I think.
But it will be complete by the spring.
Will it be complete by town meeting when people read the report?
I wouldn't count on that.
It
I-
still says,
I would have to check in with the listers. They're the ones who email the postcards to say when they're coming. And usually they come when they say they're coming. They just haven't been updating the website at the speed with which they said they would update the website. So I don't know where they are in visiting properties.
I think,
They haven't been to mine.
I think it's safer to say, you know, that it'll be completed in the spring.
I also don't think that the language is that far off, and if we
I just-
are going to speak to it like at town meeting, then we can,
Yeah.
we can give an
Sorry, I
update
just
on
wanted to
that.
be respectful for writing. It seems to me that it's possible that there could be other energy around, just the state of things, healthcare, you know, all the other big issues, healthcare, housing, safety, the state of our democracy, whatever, it, you know, people might bring up other things, particularly on the floor, that are all important issues that may or may not be something we can, that there's a context to address. And obviously we have a fantastic moderator who can manage that, but.
Usually we, check in with Mr. Sealy or like have him in
Yeah.
a meeting before, just to.
Barbara's trying to get in here on the 9th, of
Okay.
the next meeting. He hasn't responded, but hopefully he will.
I'm happy to, take whatever issues anybody doesn't want to speak to. Or doesn't feel, I feel, less, familiar with the nuance of the, any of the CLA conversation or like weighing in on, the, appraisal conversation. It's just not a process that I'm wholly, familiar with. So if anybody else is feeling like they've got a grasp on that and wants to speak to it, then.
Barbara provided a couple questions and I drafted responses, so it'll be in the next version and we can talk about it in a couple weeks.
I thought
Any
that-
other?
Yeah.
Yep, go ahead, Christine.
I thought Kari's answers to these questions were all great. Thank you for answering all the questions. And yeah, it feels like things are under control. There's not a lot of, stuff that we can't explain.
Do you want me to speak to the social service agency? Do you want me to write something or you?
To write something. I started updating the draft
Okay,
and take a look at it next time and then,
Okay.
tell me. Yeah, I just neglected.
totally fine.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, and I thought your budget slides last year were spot on.
Yeah,
I thought it was
so
great.
a few minutes,
Yeah,
not too much, but
really helpful.
high level. Okay. Well, we will practice that the second meeting in February.
Great. Well, thank you, Kari, for putting that together.
Yeah.
Revisit again, if anybody has other feedback that comes up, later, please get that in and we'll revisit it in the next meeting. Any other town meeting preparations, to discuss, Tegan?
Nothing much to discuss. The town report is getting very close to done, and it's a steep learning curve with InDesign, but as I've been telling people, I wish I had 2 more weeks to work on it. I'm really enjoying it, but I wish the deadline was a little.
Mm.
But it's in really great shape. like, if we sent it to the printer today, I would be a little disappointed, but we would meet all our guidelines and statutes and everything like that. Yeah, and now that all the candidate petitions are in, I will send the ballot to the printer and then I'll go out with the school ballot next week. I'll probably get career center ballots in next week. Everything will start rolling along. I have to post all the information around town, so those go out in the notebooks before Sunday. That's kind of all that. And Barbara's been doing all the normal stuff that she does to make sure we have people lined up. I think the only thing we haven't heard back from for town meeting is community connections. We're still waiting to make sure there's childcare before we put that in town report. I don't know why there wouldn't be. We just haven't heard back from him.
Okay. Well, let us know if there's anything else that we can lean into to help move things along. And thanks for all the work on taking on the warning and the report. That's huge.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
But I'm glad you're, aside from the deadlines, enjoying the process. That just leaves administrative items. So we have the minutes from the previous meeting that were posted to the share drive and presented by Shayna. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the January 12th meeting minutes?
Yes, I had a suggestion or two for clarity. Shayna, are you on and talkable, or are you just listening?
I'm here.
Okay, cool. I just I feel like the minutes generally are really clear about who is who and who is where and attendees in person and Zoom. But on this one, there were a couple places where I thought for the people who weren't at the meeting to read, it would be helpful to give more information. So on page 2, under the East Montpelier Fire Department, let's say you started saying Daryl explained. Let's say maybe something like Daryl Garland of the East Montpelier Fire Department, right?
Okay, I'm typing as you talk, so yeah.
Okay, and so I'm pausing for you.
Okay.
And then there was one other place on that page where we're talking about Adamant, and under the heading is town meeting warning. And then the third paragraph down, Martin Hakel advised the school is seeking. We maybe want to say, gosh, I'm not even sure, is he the board president, or Martin Hakel of the music school board or the Adamant Music School Board, appearing remotely, said this, something like that. So that's more clear.
I'd agree with those.
And then Kari, the in the paragraph right before the sentence right before that, Kari confirmed there are 7 other properties on a 5-year rotation. That seems like maybe it's not exactly what you said, and I was just thinking maybe we could take that sentence out, because it's like this whole can of worms not related to what we actually acted on or did. Thoughts there? Because I just think this Adamant music thing may come back to us, and I would like our record to be clear.
Yeah.
There's more, yeah, I
So, at least that it would say if approved, if Adamant's request were to be approved by voters, it would be for a year and then include them in the 5-year schedule. Is that part of what you're talking about, Christie? Or you're just wanting to get rid of the whole second sentence there.
Yeah, I don't think we really were saying that we would necessarily do it that way, and we
So
didn't
you're
end
feeling
up-
like it's, yeah,
we didn't end up putting it on the warning, so it felt like extraneous information that might just trip us up later if this issue came back to us. You know, if you feel like it's an accurate reflection of what you said, it's okay.
No, I think I hear what you're, I hear what you're saying, Christy, and in my recollection of Kari's input at that particular moment was that that it was a matter of providing perspective of the other properties that have exemption status.
Yes.
And I don't know that it needs to
It
get,
strikes me that the sentence is trying to do too much.
yeah.
yeah.
What if we struck it after, before and just made it a,
Right.
just like, you know,
Sure.
talked about
That's
that there
good.
are others.
Mhm.
Okay,
Great.
all right.
And then
Shane,
a
I can take
question,
care of those.
sorry.
Go ahead, Kristen, go ahead.
The last thing was just for the select board, did we want to say in these minutes that we suggested to the Adamant Music School that they could seek to add the issue by petition? Because that was kind of our resolution of that request.
Yes. Yes,
That's correct, yes.
Okay,
we welcome them to take that route if they wanted to and connect with them with Tegan.
They were more than 10 short when they brought me their petition.
Yeah.
It was short notice, yeah.
it was very.
And just, I think just in unfortunate timing in general. Those seem like fairly substantive adjustments, I think, rather than just kind of adopting the minutes. Let's just table the approval until the next meeting, after modifying that language. So that sound good to you, Christine?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Shayna.
You ruined my
Can I-
perfect record, Christy.
I'm so sorry.
I just had one or two things. One was that, on page 1, when, after public comment, Kari's describing the email from Cole, and it seemed like we should say Cole Bliss there because he wasn't in attendance. Is that appropriate?
Sure.
And then I cannot find it, but I thought the woman from, I thought that the woman who was just here, Kristen Bartram,
Catherine Saunders?
not Catherine Saunders, Kristen, anyway, her name was not, spelled out correctly or something, but I can't find it. Must be in the beginning, because that's when,
Well, she didn't appear, right?
right. I'm not seeing it, but.
I'll look for it.
So on page 1, it's the community nurse, and it says with discussion with health officer Catherine Saunders and others of a potential community nurse program, but that agenda item was postponed as they could not.
Right.
But Kristen's name wasn't, I don't remember it being on the agenda.
Okay, it must be something else then. Sorry about that.
No.
That's all then. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we'll add that to next agenda.
Thanks, Shannon. The next administrative item are board orders, which were posted to the share drive. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the board orders? Is there any discussion needed around those? If not, can I get a motion to approve and sign the board orders as posted to the share drive?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No, thank you. Approve annual AOT mileage certificate. So this is a annual, what did I just do? This is, basically an annual approval of, certifying our mileage, and classification, which is a requirement for, being eligible for, grants from the Department of Transportation. Has everybody had an opportunity to review, that mileage certificate? That's
No changes.
no changes to our mileage. Great.
I don't know, I just heard that, one of those roads was a super highway now. Did you get that one?
Don't we get more state money
Yeah,
for that?
Get some federal money for that.
Yeah, that would be good.
But yeah, do note that, 'cause we're, in 2 weeks, we're gonna talk about class 4 maintenance. and
Yeah,
So there's good data on here. There's 73 miles of class 2 and 3, which
Right.
we are responsible for maintaining. And then 11.5 class 4.
We do have some responsibility for those.
For class 4.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
right. I think, yeah, I mean, it's an important data point. And
Everyone.
I think it's gonna be increasingly important that we're equitable in how we're treating the maintenance of those. And really, I think it's gonna come down to dialogue around modifying our policy on, considering the maintenance of those, because the only other option is to upgrade them to a class 3, and then that's gonna come with requirements to bring them into compliance with road construction standards, which I think is gonna be a pretty significant burden. So, anyway, one topic. So can I get a motion, to sign, the annual AOT mileage certificate?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And we have the re-signing of the labor agreement. So this is the labor agreement that we signed. There haven't been any changes to it. Unfortunately, not law firm,
The
union, the labor union signed one that was unsigned by us, so we just have to re-sign the one that they signed to keep everything up and up. So Christy, you'll have to find an opportunity to, well, you can't use auto pen anymore, so. Yeah.
Stop by the town office before 4:00 p.m.
That would be ideal.
No rush on it.
I don't know, I might be there at 5:30 tomorrow.
So I don't think that that has to be a particular action, but that is something that we will be circulating signatures for. Mid-year financial report.
Okay, so I noticed this afternoon that I hadn't uploaded a folder to the meeting file, so to the meeting folder, so you may not have had a chance to review this. I can walk you through it, and I don't know if you may want more time. But basically, so as of December 31st, it's in your email, and I have uploaded to the meeting folder now, but as of December 31st, revenues are right on track. We're doing well there. General government expenditures are in good shape. There's quite a few one-time expenses and transfers. So factoring in those, we're doing well. Highway department, though, we've had some significant overages. All in the categories of road and vehicle maintenance, and specifically sand. We've really spent a lot on sand, and I'm still hoping it's going to be enough to get us through the year. We talked about that a little bit. Just the nature of last year's storms, and then how the first part of this year anyway started out. We spent a lot on sand, and then two of the vehicles, the loader, which Bill, you asked about this last time, I believe. That's been had a couple major repairs, including a transport up to Milton, and then the 2017 Western Star dump truck has also had extensive repair needs. So putting all that together, You know, and if you look at the summary, the cover page cover memo on the report, I kind of went through, you know, we're still expecting some state aid payments, so some additional revenue. I want to acknowledge that the highway department budget didn't include the county road repaving. That was an extra decision that was made by the select board. And then there was one other item. Oh, well, we still have funds left to spend. We have, you know, revenue in excess of expenditures. Putting all that together, we have just under 400,000 left to spend, and stay within budget. But if you consider wages and benefits, fixed costs, it's considerably lower than that. It's like 160,000. So I met with John and Tyler last week to go through this, and we're just gonna rein in as the discretionary spending as much as we can, to the extent we have discretionary spending. But, you know, we're just gonna treat it as, you know, as tightly as we can the rest of the way here. And hopefully not go over by too much.
In considering the overage, or areas where we are going to exceed, I think it is helpful context to get an idea of how that relates to the volume of material. And the sand's a good, easy example, but
Yeah.
if we're looking at an overage, you know, a little
How
context
many
on
tons?
how many,
yards.
how many tons and you know, price per yard or price
Yeah.
per ton that we're dealing with, and you know, are we looking at a significant increase in the price of the material, and or the volume of material?
Yeah, my sense is it's more on the volume
Volume,
side,
yeah.
'cause we were making up for last year. And, you know, I authorized an additional, couple loads after I thought we were done, just because of the way this year was starting to shape up, and John's concerned about running out. But that's good, I'll do that, and I'll also get some more detail on the vehicle repairs.
Great.
Are we picking up sand, or is it being delivered? And
We're getting sand from next door at the quarry. McCullough is crushing it. Basically for us.
they still are, or they have a pile over there?
No, they've been crushing it. I think they sell it to somebody else, but we're the main recipient of it.
Okay.
But it's been really beneficial because it's so close.
Right? That's always
We
been
can
the
run
benefit.
over. I don't remember this story, but Ogden did his CDL behind the wheel training, went back and forth, back and forth. And you know, if you can drive up to that, on that pile, turn it around and dump, I mean, he was pretty confident after.
I couldn't do it.
Anyway, that's the good news about the sand.
Okay,
The garage yard is not big enough for a semi to come in.
that's,
Turn
yeah,
around.
that's too bad.
Which is what really needs to happen with sand if it's not coming from next door.
Yeah.
So, other than that, you know, we've got a healthy fund balance, general fund balance, and,
Yeah, that's it. Well, thank you, Corey. We have reports. Tegan, do you have any additional input?
Couple things, the February 10th election, I keep getting ballot requests and ballots turned in. I think I've probably handed out, not quite 200, because they come in packs of 200 in the box, and we're at the very bottom of that package. So a lot of people have voted early, more than usual in a special election like this, and they keep voting. So yeah, the next select board meeting will be the night before, so we're gonna probably be hanging out here to move some things around after the meeting, or I will be here. We already talked about the town report. The only other big thing that's been going on is Kari and I started interviews for the assistant clerk select board administrator position. We had 10 candidates, but one of them I think was just sort of he sent an application and I emailed him to ask a clarifying question, because he was based in Massachusetts, and I asked if he had any housing prospects here, and I never heard anything back. So
Yeah.
we just missed that one. But that left 9 candidates. So we interviewed 6 on Friday. We did 20-minute Zoom interviews for the entire morning on Friday, and we've got 3 more tomorrow afternoon. After that, we were planning to narrow it down to 2 or 3 and bring them into the office and really show them, like, here is the space, here is how a day goes, here is, this is what it really looks and feels like. And I'm not gonna give away too many details, but they're great candidates. We've got really great people who applied for this job, and I don't think it's gonna be an easy decision for us to make. In fact, Kari and I were wondering if one of you would want to participate in the end part of this process, just to have one more perspective on choosing someone. Did you have anything more you want to say in that vein?
The only thing I would add is that the candidates are really strong. Everyone's qualified, so it's gonna come down to other factors, which are really judgment based as to,
The intangibles.
yeah. It's an interesting position to be in.
That's great to know. That's great. I'm so glad.
Really confirms what we thought we were seeing and when we hired Shayna. And what was the other one? Oh, when we did the road inventory hire.
Yeah.
People want to be involved. They
Yeah.
like the idea of working for the town.
That's
And they
great.
don't, and they're available to do part-time work.
Yeah.
But they like having the flexibility to do other things in their lives and not work 40 plus hours.
What is the time frame that you're asking if a select board member would help?
So I, if we have 2 or 3 candidates who want to interview for like 45 minutes, I'd love to set up 3 back-to-back sessions in an afternoon or something.
So
If
pretty
possible.
soon, in the next week or 2?
Yeah, in the next 10 days.
I think so.
I would be willing to do that.
Great.
If somehow Christie's schedule doesn't work, I will be second fiddle.
Okay.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine and Barbara. And thank you, Deegan and Kari. That's exciting
Great
and super encouraging
Yeah.
to hear. It's really great. Kari, town administrator update?
Yeah, just a few things. Just wanted to give you a heads up. Sandra and I are gonna meet with the attorney tomorrow to discuss our approach to tax sales under the new legislation. We have 3 properties that could potentially go up for tax sale this spring, early summer.
What's different about the regulations?
There's more requirements.
Oops, you gotta go through?
Yep.
Okay.
Including you have to wait till they've been more than a full year. It has to be 2 years of delinquency. And at least $1,500, that's fine, but then there's additional steps that have to be taken. So, I'll keep you posted on that. John Stafford let me know he's concerned about another right-of-way issue, also on Lightning Ridge Road. At the Frank's rental property right next to the school. You're probably familiar with,
The little White House.
there are fence posts,
Yep.
Which I've always considered to be breakaway, like, and we weren't enforcing it because they were, could be knocked over. He thinks that they're reinforced, and so I plan to just send a letter. It worked with the Franks before, but I was gonna send it to the Franks and to the renter. The renter, I take it, it's got a temper, because he's left some messages at the garage that are pretty out there. But we need to address it. And then James Daly provided the Regional Planning Commission's proposal for the hazard mitigation planning. It was too late to get on this agenda, but he'll be here in 2 weeks
Oh, great.
And take a look at that, and I'll just forward you the proposal so you have that to look at. And that's it.
Great. Excellent.
I'll be providing Kari with an update on the Friends of Calais Town Hall. So that maybe it could be on the next.
Next agenda?
Their
Okay.
meeting, their meeting, annual meeting is on Saturday. And we've made some progress with the agreement and all that, which I'll share with you, Kari, and, but heads up, there is some change in their, leadership, so that is presenting some challenges.
Thank you, Barbara. Any other updates on outstanding issues from anyone else? Well, with that, I think I'll call the meeting adjourned. And thank you, everybody, for your time.
Thank you.